let's explore something really familiar. That quiet, internal process of emotional change. You know how it starts? It's often just a little thought that pops up, this idea that something inside of us isn't quite right, that maybe it needs to be fixed. And right behind that thought, there's usually an impulse, right? The urge to, well, to get in there and do something, to start watching our thoughts, managing our feelings, trying to correct course when we feel something we think we shouldn't. And it makes sense, doesn't it? It feels like the responsible thing to do. It feels like we're taking charge of our own inner world. But here's a curious question. What if the very act of trying so hard to fix something is exactly what keeps it locked in place? Because when we act on that impulse, something else happens, something we don't even see. It's like an automatic protective response that kicks in deep inside our system. You see, the whole idea of fixing sends a pretty strong signal. It implies that whatever is happening inside you is wrong, or maybe even a little bit unsafe, and our brains are incredibly tuned in to signals like that. And when the brain picks up on that signal, it can switch on this state of vigilance. And this isn't just a feeling, it's a full-on biological state of being on high alert, being watchful, and, well, being defensive. Now, this is so important to get. This isn't some kind of failure on your part. It's not that you're doing it wrong. It is simply a biological response to what feels like internal pressure. So the effort to change, ironically, creates the very conditions that make change so difficult. It's a real paradox when you think about it. So what does it feel like to be in this state of watchfulness? What does it actually do to our inner experience? Well, when we're in that self-monitoring mode, our attention is always turned inward. But not just to notice, it's there to evaluate, to judge. And this keeps our nervous system fired up. The mind gets really busy, always scanning for the next problem to solve. And what happens? The emotional patterns we were trying to change, they just get reinforced. They're maintained. So you end up with two completely different internal worlds. On one side, you have the world that's created by all that pressure. It's full of vigilance, control, self-monitoring, and the defenses are fully engaged. But then there's this other state, the one that shows up when the pressure is gone. And that feels more like receptivity, relaxation, just a sense of settling. The defenses can finally stand down. And all of this leads to a pretty profound insight about how we work inside. It seems that emotional change, well, it just doesn't happen when it's being watched so closely. So if constantly inspecting ourselves is the problem, what's the alternative? Let's explore that. What actually happens inside when we're not evaluating anymore? What unfolds when that feeling of internal scrutiny just drops away? It all starts very simply. That feeling of being watched, of being judged by yourself, it just subsides. And right away, as soon as that scrutiny is gone, the internal defenses that were on high alert, they begin to relax. There's no longer a problem they need to be on guard for. And when that happens, a whole new set of conditions is created inside. There's a kind of quiet, a feeling of safety that just wasn't there before. And it's in this state, with the defenses relaxed, that the emotional meaning we've attached to things can start to update, just naturally, all on its own. And that's the key, isn't it? The change happens without us actually doing anything to force it. So what this points to is a completely different kind of change. It's not something we manage or force. It's a process that just unfolds, all by itself when the conditions are right. You could call this state receptivity. It's this open, non-judging, non-controlling space where our emotional patterns finally have room to soften and to shift. And you know, the really interesting thing about watching this process is that it suggests something pretty radical, that maybe, just maybe, there was never anything broken that needed to be repaired in the first place. It really seems to suggest that change isn't the result of correction. It's what happens naturally in the simple absence of pressure. So maybe the question isn't, how do I fix myself? Maybe the real question is, what happens if I just stop trying so hard?